I walked into my parents' house after a long business trip, expecting at least a warm welcome. Instead, I was met with cold stares and sharp words. "You should have brought snacks. We won't order for you," my parents snapped, as if I had committed some unforgivable crime. I froze, stunned. The words felt like a punch to the chest, but what hit harder was the look on my sister's face. She wasn't concerned for me at all. She was smirking, enjoying the spectacle. I couldn't understand it. How could my own family treat me like this? I had spent years supporting them, handling responsibilities while making sacrifices, yet here I was being humiliated over something as trivial as food. A wave of shock and hurt swept over me. Confusion turned into anger as I realized this wasn't a one-off incident. It was part of a pattern I had seen for years. They had always found ways to belittle me, to make me feel small and unworthy. Every achievement, every success was met with criticism. My parents thrived on control, on keeping me in my place, and my sister, she had become their little accomplice, always ready to laugh at my expense. I thought coming home after a trip would be different, that they might show some gratitude, but I had underestimated just how toxic they had become. The thought of staying silent crossed my mind, but I couldn't. Something inside me sparked, a determination I hadn't felt before. I knew I had to make a choice, either accept this humiliation or rise above it. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. I wouldn't let this define me. I wouldn't let them break me. As I looked at them, their smug faces, I realized this wasn't just about snacks. It was about power, about disrespect, and about control. And I decided, right then, that I would reclaim my dignity. But little did I know, this was only the beginning. If you were in my place, what would you do? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe. After that humiliating day, I stayed silent for a while, but inside, a storm was brewing. Each moment at home became unbearable. My parents didn't just stop at the snacks comment. They scrutinized everything I did. If I asked a simple question, it was met with sighs and sharp remarks. If I dared to make a decision, it was criticized relentlessly. And my sister, she didn't just sit back. She egged them on, subtly mocking me at every turn, her laughter echoing in my ears. It felt like I was invisible, or worse, a source of amusement for my own family. At first, I struggled to keep my emotions in check. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it was overwhelming. I replayed every word, every sneer, every subtle jab. I remembered how my parents used to control every part of my life, finances, career choices, even friendships. And my sister had always aligned with them, quietly undermining me in ways no one else saw. I realized this wasn't about food or even disrespect. It was about power. They wanted me weak, dependent, and ashamed. I started to withdraw, pretending to accept their control, but secretly, I began planning my rise. I threw myself into my work, long hours at my job, saving every penny I could. I upgraded my skills quietly, learning things they had dismissed as useless. Every insult, every sneer became fuel. I wrote down every wrong, every moment of humiliation, not out of revenge yet, but as a reminder to myself that I was worth more than their contempt. Meanwhile, their behavior only worsened. They criticized my food choices, mocked my wardrobe, and belittled my achievements. My sister took every opportunity to highlight my mistakes in front of friends and neighbors. I realized they thrived on public displays of control. Seeing me small in front of others gave them joy. But I stayed calm, learning the art of silence. I would no longer react impulsively. Instead, I let them speak, let them act, while I quietly prepared my next steps. Months passed. My savings grew. I invested in my skills, took online courses, expanded my network. The more they tried to pull me down, the higher I climbed. My confidence returned, stronger than ever. I realized that their power over me existed only as long as I allowed it. With each small victory, a project completed, a promotion earned, a financial milestone reached, I felt lighter, freer, more alive. Then came the first real twist. During a casual family gathering, I recorded a conversation where my sister mocked me and my parents openly insulted my choices. Their faces, their words, everything captured in clear audio. I didn't confront them yet. I was patient. I wanted them to feel the weight of their own behavior without me saying a word. Slowly, I started testing boundaries. I refused minor requests, small favors, and watched their panic grow. For the first time, the dynamic had shifted. They realized that I was no longer their obedient child, the one they could manipulate at will. My silence spoke louder than any argument I could make. And in that silence, I found my power. I finally understood my own worth. I didn't need their approval, their validation, or their respect to define me. They had underestimated me for years. And in doing so, they had created the very strength they feared. The humiliation that once burned in my chest now fueled a quiet confidence. I was no longer their plaything, their target, their source of entertainment. I had become untouchable, not because I sought revenge yet, but because I had mastered myself. And then, one evening, the moment arrived. I sent the recording to a close friend, letting it circulate subtly in our social circle. The reactions were instantaneous. My parents' and sisters' smug expressions began to crumble as whispers reached them. The first public hint of their toxicity was out. The tension, the panic, the realization that they could no longer control the narrative. Everything shifted in that instant. I leaned back in my chair, watching the storm I had built silently take shape. Their downfall hadn't begun with shouting, confrontation, or anger. It began with me reclaiming my power step by step. And as I looked at them, scrambling to save face, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't seeking their approval anymore. I was free. The day of the final confrontation arrived. I returned to the house, but this time I wasn't the same person who had walked in months ago, humiliated and unsure. I carried myself with calm, collected confidence, each step deliberate. My parents looked up, their expressions a mixture of surprise and unease. My sister tried to mask her smirk, but it faltered almost immediately. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply laid down the facts, the countless insults, the manipulations, the years of emotional weight I had silently endured. I watched their faces shift from confusion to guilt as they realized how deeply their actions had hurt me. The power dynamic had completely reversed. When they tried to justify themselves, I stayed silent, letting the weight of their words hang empty in the air. I wasn't seeking apologies. I was asserting boundaries. No more money, no more manipulation, no more disrespect. I had earned my freedom, and I refused to let them take it back. My sister's eyes filled with shock as she finally grasped that her actions had consequences. My parents shifted uncomfortably, their past control over me powerless against the person I had become. I smiled slightly, not out of cruelty, but from a quiet satisfaction. I had risen without losing myself. Turning away, I left the house one last time. Behind me, I felt the heavy weight of their toxicity fall away, replaced by a lightness I hadn't known for years. Outside, friends and supporters waited, their encouragement a stark contrast to the judgment I had endured inside. It was more than freedom, it was validation, growth, and self-respect.